that shouldn't bother it. Hey, welcome to the ISU course for speed skating referees, October 4th through 7th, 2018 in Rome. I'm Dan Immerfall. I'm one of the moderators. And we are going to review the rule changes to the World Cup for 2018-19. And you'll find that in ISU Communication 2192. The first thing we want to look at is paragraph 2, and specifically 2.1, the competition calendar and distribution of distances and races. And here you'll find where all of the World Cups are taking place, the dates, and the distances being skated at each World Cup. So again, I don't think it's important for me to go through all of the details here, but you know that it is in the communication, and if you need to refer to anything, this is where you find it. Paragraph 2, 2.2, World Cups that are qualifying events for the championships. And specifically in 2.2.1, World Cups number 1 through 4 are qualifying events for the European Championships, World Single Distance Championships, World Sprint Championships, and World All-Around Championships. 3.1.1, entries of competitors. It is now specifically stated that only one substitute per distance can be entered. And hopefully will make our lives simpler. An entered skater may be replaced by an entered substitute not later than the team leaders meeting preceding the draw for the distance or at a specifically announced deadline. And that specifically announced deadline reflects the fact that we're only going to hold one team leaders meeting, and we just require entry changes for days 2 and or 3 to be submitted by a specific time. 3.1 entry rules, paragraph 3.1.2 qualifying times. Qualifying times have gotten a little faster. And the first chart is for all qualifying times, or qualifying times from all tracks except for Calgary, Salt Lake, in Urumqi. Am I saying that correctly? Okay. Well, from the fast high altitude tracks, they have the qualifying times from on the second chart. 3.1 entry rules, 3.1.1 entries of competitors, paragraph B. The only event that any of the qualifying times can be used for is mass start. Team pursuit and team sprint have been removed from this exception. Only skaters entered as a competitor or a substitute in an individual event may compete in a team event, which is stated in paragraph 4.2.3.b. 3.1.4, entry quotas and selection for the World Cup final, paragraph A. Mass start has been expanded. Skaters placed among the 30 best, was previously 24, and current World Cup ranking may be entered. A maximum of 18, previously was 16, will be allowed to compete. So 30 can be entered, but only the best 18 get to race. Paragraph 4, competition formats, 4.1.1, number of competitors in Division A. It's in a pretty easy to read chart. Hasn't changed from the past. Paragraph 4, competition formats, 4.1.2, selection of skaters for Division A. Paragraph C, The top 6 finishers in Division A in the preceding competition are no longer guaranteed to stay in Division A for the next competition. Now just includes promotion from Division B to Division A. That remains unchanged, and the wild card remains unchanged. So the wild card always goes in Division A. Paragraph 4, competition formats. 4.1.4, scheduling of Division B races. Paragraph B, quartet starts can be used for Division B. The previous communication stated that quartet starts should be used for the long distances. So again, we have the difference between the words can and should. Should is a very strong suggestion. That's the recommended way to do it, unless there is a compelling reason to do it differently. Can is like the word may, so it's optional. So it's going to be something that is up to the discretion of the referee, the technical representative, and the organizers. And they could potentially be used for shorter distances, say 1,500. I think 500 is getting a little extreme, but it is allowed by this paragraph now. So there's no restriction that it's got to be 3,000 meters, 5,000 meters, or 10,000 meters. Uh, 4.2.3, general rules for team competitions. Paragraph C, the deadline for entries of names will be announced by the referee at the team leaders meeting. That means that it can be at the one and only meeting held before the first day of the competition. It no longer has to be the team leaders meeting the day before the team event. And that's what the previous communication said, that that had to be done at the team leaders meeting the day before the event. Now it just reflects our current practice. And the entry of names now can list only a maximum of 4 skaters. Before, there was always this game that the team leaders would play. They'd enter 4 skaters plus a substitute. So, some would enter 3 skaters and call the fourth skater the substitute. Now it just says you enter 4 skaters, and what you do with those 4 skaters in the big scheme of things, when it comes to race time, is up to the teams to decide. 4.2.4, safety measures for team competitions. Paragraph A, competitors are recommended to wear a helmet that complies with Short Track Rule 219, paragraph 1A. Please note that a helmet is required for team sprint. Not for team pursuit, but for team sprint. That is mandatory. It's recommended that a cut-resistant racing suit or cut-resistant underwear that complies with Communication 1265, which is a short track one. Knee shin guards made of plastic or cut-resistant material, and cut-resistant or leather gloves. Again, those are all recommendations. The only thing that is mandatory is a helmet for team sprint. Paragraph B, the front and back of the blades must be rounded off with a 1 centimeter radius, which is new. Paragraph C, other safety measures may be announced. And the details on the organization of team competition are given in an ISU communication, which we will talk about a little bit later. 4.3, format for mass start competition. The safety measures specified in paragraph 4.2.4 are mandatory, which is nothing new. 5, pairing and drawing and starting order, issuing of start list. 5.1, team leaders meeting and draw meeting. It's no longer required to have a team leaders meeting and draw meeting before each day of the first World Cup. We can just get by with one and then do our usual thing where we have the team leaders submit their entry changes for days 2 and 3. Nick? Comment, question?
Well, just to go over this also with the entries for days 2 or day 3 of a World Cup, I think it would be good if we kind of came up with a standard time that we want to have those. So at the end of day 1, to confirm entries for day 2, it'd be nice if we came up with a rule or a standardized time. If it's at the end of the day of day 1, you have to have your entries in for day 2. We kind of always are scratching our head at an event. When should we do this? How should we do it? Maybe it's worth a discussion to figure out how we should do it and try to implement that at every World Cup.
Okay, good point. And you're taxing my memory right now. That may be dealt with in that specific communication, which we'll get to later. I don't know if it is or not. Yeah. Okay, but you know, good point. And maybe the technical committee can get together and come up with a standardized time for that to happen, and then we can have a form that has that printed on it that can be distributed to the team leaders. 5.2, pairing and drawing at the first World Cup. Team leaders must confirm the seating of their entered skaters by order of quality. The referee places the skaters from each country in the respective order that corresponds to the number of skaters this country had in the 2017-18 final World Cup ranking, not exceeding current entry quotas. Within each division, skaters are ranked according to their best achieved qualifying time. The pairs are then composed based on this ranking. The starting order is slowest to fastest. However, in Division A, the last 3 pairs, which are the top 6 ranked skaters, are drawn. And I guess I'm a little, you know, as a native English speaker, I'm a little confused by the wording in the second bullet point. The referee places the skaters from each country in the respective order that corresponds to the number of skaters this country had in the 2017-18 final World Cup ranking. Now, Alex, do you have anything you can say to clarify that? I mean, the wording just sounds awkward to me. I'm not quite sure how to interpret it.
The role of the referee is to check that number of skaters not exceeding, right? If you have, for instance, 5 for Russia, so you have to check that all 5 can skate in A division and so on. That's the meaning. Okay.
So in other words, if they had, you had five Russians entered in the 500 meters, and you had 3 that were in the top 20, then they get 3 start positions in Division A, and the rest are in Division B. Okay. So that helped clarify it for everyone. It helps me. Okay.
Yes.
Hold on, Travis.
Just the wording, maybe I don't understand, is it says the team leaders must confirm the seating of their entered skaters by order of quality. Now, does that mean the team leaders must pick their 1, 2, 3, 4 skaters, not directly related to time?
Yes.
But the quality they consider?
Yes. Yes. And that's the way it always was.
Okay.
Okay. And then once we've determined quality, and we've determined that in the case of the Russians, they get to have 3 skaters start in Division A. We put the 3 skaters that the team leader has ranked 1, 2, 3 in Division A. Then we seed them or place them in pairs based on their best achieved qualifying time. So it may not be the skaters that have the 3 fastest qualifying times. It's the skaters that the team leader says are ranked 1, 2, 3.
In the communication states that at 12 o'clock the team leaders present the seeding of the entered skaters, and then at team leaders meeting they come and say one skater is out, and we enter the sub. Is the sub the fifth? For example, they have 4 skaters. Or is the sub always considered as the slowest or the with the less quality skater, or can they put in the sub on the place of the skater who scratched out?
Okay, now in this case we're only talking about the first World Cup.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm doing that.
that's
so
that's well, yeah. So am I. I'm with you. So the at that first World Cup, the communication is clear in that the team leaders can decide the ranking of their skaters. And that comes off of their national qualification process, or whatever the team leader decides. So yeah, they could come in with a substitute and call that substitute their number 1 skater.
Yeah.
It's possible.
But
At the team leaders meeting, because
why is then stated the 12 o'clock? So they stated already this is our quality ranking.
In case you said substitute will be entered, right? That's my main question. So that's up to team leaders to decide if substitute is stronger than first one. Maybe he was sick and they were not sure.
Yeah.
So now he's healthy and they say he's the first.
Yeah.
And then
So then they can mess up the whole
list completely.
Yeah.
well, yeah,
Okay.
it could,
Then
Potentially.
we prepare for that. Yeah.
yeah. But we still want all of the ranking by name in by 12 o'clock, so we have time to prepare everything, and then the team leaders have up until the team leaders meeting to make any changes. You have to give them that, and then it's we just plug them in where they belong. It should be fairly simple.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, pairing and drawing and starting order, issuing of start list, 5.3, pairing and drawing after the first World Cup. And the pairs are composed as was done last season, based on World Cup ranking and the extended ranking. They don't have points, except in Division A, the last 3 pairs, or the top 6 skaters, are drawn. So we know that the top 6 skaters are going to be in the last 3 pairs, but which pair they're in and who they're skating against is determined by a draw. I guess you could maybe call that the Kalishnikov rule, because for several seasons he was always last pair, inner lane. Paragraph 5, pairing and drawing and starting order, issuing of start list. 5.4, rearrangements. Rearrangements are handled according to Rule 245, Paragraph 1, which we discussed at pretty great length when we reviewed the rule changes from the 2018 Congress. After rearrangement in Division A, the best ranked skater from Division B is promoted and placed in the vacant spot. Or if there is more than one withdrawal from Division A, it could be more than one skater from Division B that gets promoted. A substitute can only be placed in the vacant spot in Division B. Please note that rearrangements are completed in both divisions before the substitute is placed. So we rearrange Division A, promote from the best ranked skater or skaters from Division B to fill up the empty spot. Then we rearrange Division B. Then we put the substitute in. We don't care what the ranking of that substitute is, whether he has 2,000 World Cup points or is like the last guy with a World Cup time. They go in whatever vacant position is left over in Division B. And as always, the skater who has moved to another pair must be informed at least 30 minutes before the start of the distance, which is Rule 245, paragraph 3. Yes. Then Melanie.
So this applies, the third bullet applies that if you start Division B, no substitutes can be entered. Yeah, for this day. Yeah. Start of the distance, yeah. So someone is out in Division A, no substitute will be in. Because they are only placed in Division B.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Then
Yeah.
I
So
have
in the
it clear.
case that Division B is skated first, then after Division B is finished, the team leader comes and says, "Well, I want to withdraw this skater from Division A and put in my substitute," and we just tell them, "Sorry,"
Yeah.
because it says in the communication that the substitute can only be placed in Division B.
Okay,
So
thank you.
that also leaves us with the maybe not the best, the most spectator-friendly result, because we have a single pair then in Division A instead of full pairs. But that's the consequence of this, and I think it's a good rule because it hopefully will cut down on team leaders playing games with substitutes and trying to get somebody in Division A that maybe shouldn't be in Division A, and so now they know up front whatever they do with a substitute, they're always going to be in Division B, and if they don't do it in a timely manner, they just don't get to enter their substitute. So we'll see how it works. Oh, and then Melanie has a question.
Yeah, also to 2.3, does it mean that a substitute may lose their wild card?
Say that again, please, or ask that again.
Yeah, maybe the substitute could be a skater with a wild card.
Okay.
So,
now
and if I enter him as a substitute and will use him as a substitute, he would lose his wild card.
no, because the communication says that the wild card always goes in Division A.
That's true, but at that point, it's written that in the case that the skater is a substitute, that he can be only placed in Division B. So what's more important at that point? To be a substitute or to have a wild card?
Okay, so what I'm hearing from the more than one technical committee member is that that the wild card is more important.
Okay, thank you.
So then I guess we have the question. A team leader withdraws the skater that is in Division B and replaces them with the substitute with the wild card. We already have a full pairs in Division A. Does that mean we add a pair to Division A to accommodate the wild card? Or do we boot somebody, the lowest ranked skater, out of Division A?
We don't move in this case person from B division.
So then we're adding an additional pair.
No.
No?
So you mean, yeah, we don't substitute. Will replace the person withdrawn. But in this case, we do not move person from B division.
Okay, but what if if the withdrawal comes from a skater who is in Division B, and they replace them with the substitute with the wild card, so they're placed in Division A. We have no withdrawal from Division A. We have full pairs. Does that skater, do we add a pair?
No.
Interesting question.
But then, doesn't the rule say that you have to state beforehand the competition that you're going to use the wild card?
Exactly. Yeah, you cannot enter a substitute with a wild card. Exactly, because you will not use it, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because how can you enter a substitute with a wild card?
Okay, so that's what you're saying is that if the skater is entered as a substitute and they have a wild card in that distance, because they're a substitute, they can't use the wild card.
Exactly. Yeah, the wild card is only purpose to be to skate in A division.
And it has to be done.
Yeah.
Prior to the first draw of that distance.
Correct.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
okay, so the wild
Meaning of the wild card.
yes, so is what you're telling me is that to use the wild card, that has to be declared before the first team leaders meeting and the first draw meeting. They can't come in as a substitute later and then try and use that wild card. It's got to be declared right away. Okay. All right. So then that changes the answer to your question, Melanie. If the withdrawal comes from Division A, yeah, no, then they can't use the wild card. Any other questions there? Okay. 5.6, mass start, starting orders and composition of semifinals. 5.6.1, the first World Cup. Competition skated as one race with all skaters in the final. Skaters are seeded according to the same criteria as individual distances. The seeding determines the lineup on the start line, except the 6 best ranked skaters are drawn for their start position. So that first row, it's just who's going to be, inside and ultimately who's going to be on the outside. With competition skated as semifinals or with semifinals, skaters are seated as described above, and this determines which semifinals the skaters are placed in and the lineup on the start line. No start positions are drawn. The final, you're in the final, the lineup of the start line is determined by the results of the semifinal. Paragraph 6, points and ranking system. 6.1, points scoring table. The points have changed, just so you're aware of that. Some things to note here is places 1, 2, 3 in Division B are awarded an extra 15 points, 10 points, and 5 points. Places 1, 2, 3 in the World Cup final mass start are awarded an extra 60, 54, and 48 points. If Division B is canceled and more than 20 or 16 skaters, depending on the distance, are in Division A, points for the additional skaters are awarded according to the Division B points chart. So it's a little bit more complicated. We usually don't have to worry about that, but just so you're aware of how it all works, just in case you get questions. 7, World Cup ranking rules. 7.1, World Cup ranking for each competition category. Ties are resolved according to the following criteria in priority order. Okay, first is the skater or the team with the most World Cup victories. If that doesn't resolve the tie, then we go to the skater or team with the higher score of points in one single competition or race. If that doesn't resolve the tie, we go to the skater or team with the best time achieved in the World Cup for the distance or competition. So at this format, we should be able to break any tie going to time.
Question. If this happens in the first World Cup?
But what about if it happens in the first World Cup?
Yeah, if you have the same time.
Well, okay. If you have the same time to the 1,000th.
Okay.
But yeah, it's possible.
Yeah.
If you have the same time to the 1,000th, well then, I mean, of course, then you have a tie.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that in most cases, this should resolve the ties, better than the previous system. Susan,
Wait.
just hang on.
Hang on.
Because this is the time for any other questions or discussion. I've completed my portion of the World Cup.
If we can go back to safety measures 4.2.4.
Yeah.
The communication 2195 that talks about the safety, it's just cut resistance gloves. And in this one, it has cut resistant gloves and leather. So are we accepting leather gloves?
Well, I'm waiting for the technical committee to work through this, but go ahead.
Yeah, the communication 2195 is a later version than 2192, so we have to follow specific communication in this case. Yes.
Yes.
Only, no, not optional. No. No.
Yep. And we will go over that communication shortly. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, then I think that concludes our review of World Cup changes, and we will continue with the Junior World Cup. You need a short break to set it up? Okay.